today, what advice would you give them in starting their own company? So we'll start first with the advice that you got.
The best advice that I got, and I know there are a lot of amazing young ladies out there who are going to become amazing, dynamic women like you, like the other panelists. And some of the best advice I got early in my career was that you don't have to do one thing. I am a dentist, I'm a writer, I'm a speaker, and there was a point in my life, and I'm very active in my community, but there was a point in my life where I thought I had to give those things up, particularly writing and speaking, which are my passion, in order to be a really good dentist. And one of my mentors, they call them coaches now, pulled me aside and said, you know what, I can see that that's making you unhappy. You need all of those things because of the way you're wired, the way your personality is. So if doing one thing all the time very well brings you joy, that's what you should do. But don't feel like you can't do multiple things with balance, but you can do more than one thing. And I would tell anyone looking to start your own company, and you do want to do your own thing at one point, I would say start that with working for someone else, learning with someone experienced and successful. And above all, don't let anyone pay you to be unhappy. Not a client, not a customer, not a company. Your soul, your spirit is not for sale. Don't compromise who you are for money.
Yeah, don't hesitate to fire a client who's making you miserable, sounds like. You know, Diana, your book, Girls Who Run the World, focuses on 31 CEOs. You've had these conversations with these women. Why is it, have you found, that there are so few women in that CEO position?
It's a complicated problem, not surprisingly. And I think that there's kind of external factors that are problematic, and you know, those we need to work towards change. But there are also a lot of factors inside of women that I think are limiting them from aiming high and going after those jobs. And let me tell you a couple of them. So first of all, women universally underestimate their abilities. There's been studies that show, you know, in 30 out of 30 countries, they ask women and men to estimate their IQ. And in 30 out of 30 instances, the women underestimate their IQ and the men overestimate their IQ. And that's just interesting to think about, because I think that goes to what kind of jobs and positions at companies that women choose to pursue. CEOs mostly come from bottom line responsibility jobs, so where you have control over the finances. And women tend to veer towards marketing jobs, PR jobs, human resources, and sales. And so that is not typically the path where you're going to end up in kind of a top management job. And I think that's some of, you know, women viewing themselves as not capable to, you know, be responsible for the money and the bottom line. And women have a kind of complicated relationship to money and feeling like it's something intimidating. And I think that's one area that girls, I would say to you, don't be afraid of money. Don't be afraid of math. Learn about it now. Those things are going to be super important for you in your career. There's, you know, women are subject to bias. So one of the things in hiring that men tend to do is look for someone for a job that looks like who they've seen in that job before. And so, you know, again, we need you girls to get into those top positions so that it can start to break down some of that bias, and we can normalize that is a job where I've seen a woman succeed in this in the past, and so it would make sense to hire you. So those are just a couple of the reasons. I guess the final one is, as far as entrepreneurs and women starting their own companies, it's exceedingly difficult right now for women to get funding from venture capitalists. So the data is crazy. For women, overall, we get about 2% of the funding. from in the whole pool of venture capital going towards startup businesses. And for Black women, we get 0.02%. So, those are things that we all need to think about and start to make change in.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. And Annette, you were nodding your head a lot as Diana was talking. You're the CEO in the group. So I'm curious, what has been the valuable leadership lesson for you? And when did you know your value? When did you see yourself as that CEO?
I will absolutely, I was nodding my head because I couldn't agree more. And everything you just described was absolutely something that even myself, who often is very outspoken and a champion of women and breaking barriers, I recently became a mother. I'll be completely honest, under 6 months ago. And I took this job 1 year ago. So if you do the math, I was actually pregnant for the beginning portion of my first few months in this role. And I will tell you that even as a champion of women, and you all could probably relate to this, occasionally you have those thoughts that seep in that you don't know how they get in there, because you know better than to question yourself, right? You encourage others not to, but it's almost like it's ingrained, these doubts are ingrained in you of whether, you're able to handle it all, whether you should be ambitious, whether you should start a family and make that career change, or whether, you're somehow reaching for too much. And I had a brief moment, even in my own transition, of questioning myself, and had to tell myself, like, you literally encourage women all the time to do exactly what you're doing, but you have to put those thoughts aside and be really, give yourself some grace, and recognizing that some of these thoughts and some of these doubts are really ingrained. And so I would say that for everyone, the best thing you can do is just surround yourself with women that are going to be your champions in your corner, that you champion them, because every person has a moment where you need that reality of snap out of it, girlfriend, you got this. You know what I mean? And so if you surround yourself with that tribe, with that, personal board of directors, some people call it, then you always have that person or somebody to rely on to be that sounding board that can tell you, no, this is where you're meant to be. You were meant to do this. You've got this. You were made for it. Go and get it.
We are at a point, I think, in our society and country where we are really looking at people and women of color differently. We are seeing them for the value that they bring to society. I know in our newscast, our stories look a little differently, and it's exciting. It's exciting to recognize that people of color aspire and reach high levels and goals and all the things that you talk about that you have done. So, and we have girls with us tonight. What would you say to them to inspire them to continue to dream big and believe that they can bring about change, and that they can see the kind of success for themselves that they want?
That's a great question. And I am happy to see that change in the nature of the stories on the news, because I grew up seeing different pictures on the news, and I had parents to balance it out, or it might have impacted me in a different way. I love Girl Scouts as an organization. I know the young women in there are great and confident and have strength of mind, and that they're learning to make and achieve goals. And when you talk about changing the world, I often remind young people that it takes 100 million pennies to make $1 million. 100 million pennies to make $1 million, because we all want $1 million. But we forget what it takes to make it, the small things. And in our lives, we might want 1 million likes, 1 million shares, sell 1 million books, 1 million employees, but that doesn't just happen. We have to do the work. And no, there's not a lot of luck involved. We have to make it happen and be determined, and remember that in order to get to that great big goal, which you should make, and you may see other people doing it, and you're thinking, how did they do that? Or you're on your way to your great big goal, and there are all these detours and roadblocks. But just remember, it's one small change, one small choice at a time. 100 million small choices every day, starting right now, from education to listening to your parents, to exercise, to putting in the time for rehearsal, and 100 million small choices will begin to accumulate into something big, and you'll impact people. Because my thing is that you try to make a difference, not a dollar, and success is a side effect of that. And when you impact enough people in a positive way, they change their lives, your life changes, and ultimately you change the world together. And that can be done by any young lady, anywhere.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much. Small changes do make a big difference. And we're coming down to the last few minutes of our conversation. So since you've got the floor, so to speak, Dr. mOe, I'm going to start with you. And this is a question for all of you all. And the question is, pick one woman who has inspired your journey and tell us why. Dr. mOe?
I'll be quick. I normally say my mother, but I've said that so many times. I'm going to talk about another mother today, who is Mother Mary Teresa Boyajou, better known as Sister Teresa or Mother Teresa of Calcutta. She is an amazing woman, Roman Catholic nun. She's deceased now, missionary, Nobel Prize winner, known all over the world by everyone for her work serving the poor and the sick in India. But what a lot of people forget is that she gave up a life of comfort. We always talk about the rags to riches story. For India, she went from riches to rags to make that sacrifice and follow her calling, her faith. So doing a great big thing, making an amazing change, making a difference may not be a person, place, or thing. And that's what I learned from her. And that's what I want these young ladies to remember, is that you follow your passion, follow your heart, and try to make a difference in people's lives. And that's what she did for me. That's a great lesson I learned from Mother Teresa.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. mOe. Annette, same question for you. One woman who inspired you and why?
I think, there's a lot of women that have always inspired me, but right now, I think where I am in my life, my grandmother has been somebody that I think of often now that I'm, 6 months into motherhood. She had 7. She had 7 children as an immigrant to the United States, and also at one point became a single mother when my grandfather passed away. So 7 children and putting food on the table, and still, really the resilience that takes at that time period, you know what I mean? And so I just really, more than ever, I believe women can do it all. We can do everything. We find a way. The gumption is there. The resilience is there. Women from all walks of life are champions, are survivors, especially right now. My heart goes out to all women who have, working from home, who are taking care of children, who are shushing children in the background while they're trying to be on their work Zoom meetings. So I say, women around the world, high five for doing everything it is that you do, and really balancing and juggling all the hats that everyone does.
Yeah, thank you, Annette. And Diana, you've talked to women who run the world, so I'm sure you've had lots of inspiration, but who is your one woman and why?
The woman I have in mind today is someone named Dr. Sarah Fain. And she is someone who, in my journalism career, I had the lucky opportunity to travel to Afghanistan. She's a British physician. And she first visited Afghanistan when she was a medical student, and she worked on the border in refugee camps. And she was trying to think about how she could help this country that is so much in trouble. And what she decided is education is the #1 thing that could really, really move society forward, and particularly education for girls. And her story actually reminds me a lot of what you were just saying, Dr. mOe, because what she did was she has built 50 schools in Afghanistan, but it started with just building 1 school. And then after 1, then she built a second one and a third one, and all the way until an entire region in the north of Afghanistan. Now every girl is going to school. And I'm just so struck by her because she didn't have any special powers or any special connections to do this. She just put her mind to it, and she started really small. And she just said, I'm going to figure out how to raise the money to build 1 school. And then she, worked from there and moved forward with making connections with the Afghan government and getting them to take over the schools after she had built them. And anyway, just this whole concept that don't think that problems are so big that you can't attack them, the way to start is just to start. And you build one and you learn from that. And then the next thing you know, every girl in the region is going to be, you know, and in those classrooms, when I was visiting with her, she would ask the girls, how many of your mothers have a high school education or any education? And not a single hand would go up. And so this is generational change. And I think we don't think enough in the United States about how lucky we are to be able to get an education. And so anyway, this woman really inspired me. And I even got to take my mother along with me on this trip to Afghanistan. And that was really, really special. And Sarah is an amazing hero to me. And her organization is called Afghan Connection.
Yeah, that is fantastic, Diane. And I think at a point too, when kids are learning at home, don't squander that education. Do the work even though you're at home. And I think too that, you know, we all have a superpower, and it's here. It's our mental power, and it's what's in our heart. And that's what girls and women bring every single time all around this country. And you all have done it today, brought your heart and your mind power. And we do appreciate it, ladies. Thank you so much to you, Diana, to you, Annette, and to Monica. You've inspired us. We're going to go forth and conquer. We're going to leave this drive-in and go change the world. And, you know, and I think as you pointed out too, we might have a long way to go when it comes to an equitable society. But Michelle Obama has said, there is no limit to what we as women can accomplish. And with your help, we accomplished something great tonight. Thank you all so much.